Say that Jake was boasting about his lock-picking skills, and we got locked in my friend's living room the other day and he couldn't get us out. So, we've only got a small amount of time for the Q&A, so rush on stage.
That is true.
Sorry to call you out.
No, that's true. I did fail. Yeah, you're right.
And he had a full lock-picking kit. I was like, hack the lock.
You can't hack out of things. You can't lock-pick out of things. You can only lock-pick in.
What use is that?
I think the real problem there is we're locked in a living room, unable to get out of a living room. A very strange situation.
Yeah.
No keys.
Questions.
It's really inspiring to see you guys saying, just like, as I quote, just be yourself and go with your heart and do what you believe in and what you want to, even if people are telling you not to and you have to sort of rework the system and things like that. And I feel the same way, and I feel really passionately about what I want to do. But my question for you clearly is that you've been successful, but how do you cope with when things don't work, when you know that in your heart you want them to, but what's your coping strategy for if there's things that happen that you didn't want or expect? That's for everybody, anyone.
I'd say, obviously, there's always going to be places where you fall and, where things don't work out as planned or things aren't received the way you want them to. But the main thing is that I think all of us and all of you guys are passionate about what we do, and if you're enjoying what you're doing, if you're loving what you're doing, it's not necessarily about how it's received. If the process is enjoyable, if you enjoyed the process and you learned things in that process that maybe you don't want to replicate or you can figure out how to do it better next time, then it's a win-win. So I think, even in fails, there's wins as well. So that's what I'd say.
Definitely, and I think that idea of process is so important. That's how we learn to get stronger. And there's nothing wrong with a failure. And it's to be celebrated, because we need to fail to be able to get... I've failed loads. I think I even told a story about it. But so it's really important that we have those moments so that we can look out at the system and work out how to change it and how to change ourselves.
I suppose I would just say find support because shout out to my mum. If I didn't have her calming me down when I was like, I can't, no, then the project might never have happened. But also all the girls in the project and just my friends being supportive, you can't do anything by yourself, or at least you can, but it's very difficult. So, lean on people, and that's okay to do that.
Yeah, I'd say a combination of all of those things. Having the right people around is fantastic, especially if you do fail, and you've got the right people to say, support you back into it. And I'd say don't be afraid to fail. And just don't be afraid to think. I mean, be nervous all the time. I think it's good to be nervous. It's good to have this. I'm sure we were all nervous for coming up here, and all this. And we've all dealt with rejection many times over. But if you're not nervous and you're not driving for it, it's probably not too real. So just have the right people and just don't be afraid.
Because without taking risks, a risk is only if you could fail, isn't it? And I think everyone here really clearly articulated that they've all taken massive risks. I think that's the most important thing, to allow yourself to fail, and then you might not.
Thank you, everybody. They were absolutely fantastic talks. Following on from that question, is the structure, particularly in education, are we taught not to take risks? And we're kept very narrow. Where do you think the parameters are within education? Because every young person goes through education. How are they therefore taught to take risks beyond the parameters? You've got to get this grade, you've got to get that. You can only do these subjects. And you can't be creative outside of, for example, the STEM subjects. That's science, technology, engineering and mathematics.
Well, I'm a youth worker, so I work with a lot of young people from all different backgrounds, all different ages, from 7 to up to 25. And I think that the way the education system is at the minute, it is quite destructive in terms of encouraging creativity and thinking outside the box. And everyone's different. Everyone, even everyone on this stage has got different personalities, different ways of getting to that end goal. And I think that stress that's put on teachers. Teachers have to tick so many boxes, so they've got to sort of guide the young people through the hoops that they have to, that's part of their job and how they get paid at the end of the day. But I think then it puts the onus on community groups and youth workers and places like this to do the encouraging and to show young people that they don't have to fit inside a box, that they don't, you know, they say you can't judge a fish by its ability to ride a bike or something. Everyone's good at something, aren't they? And like, you know, that's why we're so lucky to have things like the Arts Council that are going to help invest in the community groups and things that are going to encourage that where schools can't.
Yeah, absolutely. And to the point of just listening to young people is important as well. We're working with a few others in order to get more meaningful hacking in the national curriculum. So it's a process of kind of going into the schools and going, kids, what do you want to learn? What do you want? And they all say, you know, practical hacking. They want like capture the flag games, which are sort of you get a kind of deliberately vulnerable computer and you get two teams and it's whoever can hack it the fastest. And all those kids want that. So it's, you know, making workshops, listening to them, working with the teachers, and just expanding the subjects we have. You know, you go into school, you get taught, I don't know, spreadsheets, which are awesome, but they're not so useful in hacking. And again, arts as well, just expand it out. Ask kids what they want to do in arts, and you know, bring art back. When I wanted to kind of go into the arts when I was in school, and there wasn't really much of an opportunity there. So hacking and arts, bring those into school. Maybe in one lesson.
Yeah, I would just say that I agree that I think schools discourage failure quite dramatically. I think it's like you have to succeed, you have to get the highest mark you possibly can. If you get a bad mark, big red circle around it, you have to stay in for detention. Like, it's really, I think, perfection, and that's not always achievable. And like, it's supposed to be off the bat, and it's like, how is that possible? And then you're teaching younger children, like, failure's so bad, failure's the worst, but, you know, and then that does discourage risk, and without risk, then nothing exciting is going to happen. So, yeah, I would say that is definitely a problem that needs to be addressed, and that. And it's not, again, kind of as you were saying, it's not like just the teacher's fault, like they have the tick boxes as well, but that's the whole problem with the whole system. So we just need to revamp it all, really.
That's brilliant, exactly, revamp the system. And also we have a massive responsibility, don't we, as we're the people that have been through the education system. I personally, you know, am an incredibly privileged white man, there's no doubt about that. So I have a responsibility to the community who are following through but after me, so to speak, in order to absolutely make sure that the opportunities and privileges that I have are shared and that we can keep improving that. And we are, there's no doubt, being let down by arts provision in the schools throughout. That play that I was talking about that I was directing was written by 8-year-olds, being performed for primary school children. I was rehearsing it in a school that has no arts provision in order so that they could see professional actors working in there. And we have to keep support, as you were saying earlier on, about having that support network, and that's our responsibility, isn't it? And supporting those teachers, as you said, and being the community, because that's what we are. As art makers and communicators, whether it be hacking or music, that's about creating a community, isn't it, through shared ideas. And so we have a responsibility, I think, to keep that community going on. Thank you.
Couple more.
That was them, not me.
I don't want to be responsible for choosing who gets to ask the questions.
Hi, I have a question for you, Jake. And it said earlier that you had been banned from the internet for 2 years. And my question is simply, what did you do?
Well, when they first enforced the ban, they said, I think the words they used were Tier 1 threat to national security. Something stupid like that. Like, if you look at the national security threats, you Tier 2 is like biological warfare. And I'm like, all right, so Tier 2 is higher than Tier 1. It's backwards. And they said, no, it's computer security. So I got banned on that basis, specifically for involvement in those two groups I mentioned, Anonymous and LulzSec, over about an 8-month period, hacking government websites and this sort of prankster-style LulzSec stuff. So they banned me from the internet for 2 years before I went to trial in court, which was just a preventative measure to say if he goes back online, he's going to send some secret codes or some hidden images in like cat pictures that are going to make bad things happen. So I was banned from the internet, but I was also banned from asking other people to use the internet on my behalf in case I sent it like encrypted, super secret spy stuff. So yeah, 2 years banned just as a police bail condition, and it's just something they can enforce. A few people have had it since. So when you're on police bail, they can put you. I was also on home detention during that time with a big electronic tag. So they just pile on these restrictions. So we're hoping to work with getting rid of those absurd restrictions, because the internet is sort of a human right now, and it has been, and so we shouldn't be just taking people away from it for 2 years.
What did you do?
When
When you had no internet?
Well, no,
Did you read it all?
oh yeah, and also finding my way home was fun. Because you got this combination. I had a 10 p.m. curfew. If I didn't get home by 10 p.m., people would come in vans and arrest me. And then I moved to London, and I had no idea where to go in London. And I had no Google Maps, so you had to use those big physical maps and run home by them. So it was kind of like a game with a timer where a dragon would eat you if you didn't get to the checkpoint in time. So that was fun. That was a way to make it fun, but it's super dull. I hope no one else has to go through that. So we're hoping to fix that.
Do we have time for one more? One more. Also, Jake is unbanned at the moment and he can do some quite fun things, so you should try and make him, just grab him, basically, when you have a chance.
Hi.
Last question?
Hi.
Where?
There's such a lack in the education system about mental health. And at the end of the day, it's like if you can have all the money in the world, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have your physical and mental health, then you can't really do much with it. And I wondered, how can the arts put more into the education system to do with mental health?
You need to come to the breakout session later. That was my response. But no, I think it's true. And I think, as I kind of said, I was part of the ART31. I am part of ART31. And one of the things that we're really interested in is mental health. It's the thing that over the year that I've been involved has come up again and again and again, is there's not enough support for young people with mental health issues, and how can the arts help that and that relationship. And it's a big question, so it's just trying to kind of figure out the answer. But I think schools, just in my opinion, are like a massive resource that fall short a lot of the time. You know, if you're going through a really stressful time, exams are really stressful, but you know, relationships, just growing up generally is quite stressful. Internet problems, you know, that kind of thing. Maybe it was just me, but there was no one I could go to at school. I think we had like an outside counsellor who they could bring in if you requested it, but you know, are you going to really do that? Probably not. I didn't. So I had to go and find counselling elsewhere. But, you know, that's terrible. You know, young people, it's a really, really big time in their lives and they should have support, like I was saying earlier, support. But, yeah, I think schools can do so much more and I think they should.
Yeah, and I'd say again, like the last question, we've got to take some of that responsibility ourselves as well as people that work in the community, that, you know, looking at young people and, you know, our neighbours as human beings. I think schools look at them as numbers and we've got to get them from A to B and this is how we're going to do it. So we do have to take some of that responsibility and be doing things like what Hamish was saying, where he's going into schools and addressing those issues and reminding young people that we're all humans, we all have flaws, we all have our highs and lows, and that, you know, that's fine and we should embrace it. You know, it's nothing to be ashamed of. So.
And what's so important about that is, I don't know why I've now got on my knees, but is that thing
yes,
that...
I do.
If only. But going back to that, it's that amazing thing that, because, you know, when I was growing up, and it sounds like when Emily was growing up, is that there wasn't talked about mental health. But what there was is there were artists, like that amazing cycle that you talked about seeing that album and being able to connect to it. And then that phenomenal thing would happen with that young girl that was able to engage with art that wasn't directly talking about a thing, but talking about a thing that connected to them personally. So that's what is so important about moments like this and about the fact that we know the world isn't good enough, but at least we're talking about it, step one. But the next step is to use all these amazing voices that are around here and share them.
Yep.
That's all we've got time for here, but these guys are around, so thank you so much to our speakers.